we've had a lot of things eroded in our culture. And there's all kinds of theories as to what matters in that space, as well as all kinds of theories as to how we got to this place. But if we can pause long enough to observe that most selves in this contemporary era experience a kind of floundering. People don't feel planted anymore. And when you observe that, you begin to see a paradox that kind of arises in front of you. And it is that really never before has society been so centered on the individual. And correspondingly, never has the individual been so deprived of what it needs. And we're struggling to reconcile those two. We've established a cult of the self. We've elevated the needs, the felt needs of the self, emotional needs, security needs, etc., to a place or a status of almost deification. And yet, you survey the landscape, you ask around, and people are woefully unfulfilled and insecure and untethered in relationships and in community. And so it begs the question, what's going on? Like, what led to this? And among all of the other answers that we might come up with, we might observe and maybe entertain the idea that the focus on the self is the very problem. That orienting people to themselves alone has never fulfilled an individual. And if we were to rewind the tapes and you were to ask my grandfather as a boy what he wanted to become in life and what he would aspire toward, he would have told you that he wanted to become a good person. If you asked him when he was in grade 4 or grade 5, that would likely have been his answer, because we had a culture that was marked by an emphasis on heroes in that era, right? The soldier or the statesman or the virtuous mother or father who give of themselves to the community. But the focus was never on fulfilling myself, my selfish ambitions, my aspirations, etc. That was understood to be unvirtuous. And the more we moved away from the virtues of selflessness, the more we stepped into this quagmire of the self that is paradoxically untethered to the needs of the community around it and only present to its own needs. And so whereas in our grandparents' generation, the statement on rights, for example, might have been, your rights are my responsibility. When we come to the cult of the self in the contemporary era, that flips on its head, and now my rights are your responsibility. And I can't ever be fulfilled by that, because no one is going to come and rescue me out of or into the kinds of things that will actually fulfill me. Those are found in service. Those are found in honor. Those are found in cultivating capacities around virtue. And so we've taken on this notion that some technical solution that exists outside of the self will be found if we build the right institution, or we properly understand the way that we've been victimized. And I think the jury's in. Our society is not healing inside of that rubric. The last thing that we might at last choose to do is take responsibility for ourselves. And that would involve dropping the mission to change the world around me and picking up the mission of changing my interior world. A great writer and essayist named Henry David Thoreau wrote a book called Walden, or On Walden Pond. And it was the story of his exit out of society and into a season of solitude in his life. And from that platform or that base of experience, he observed how often people who don't have a settled interior life were going to the post office. Okay? This is in the early 1900s. And we didn't have internet, we didn't have email, but we had letters, and we had the Pony Express. And he said, men will go more persistently, more feverishly to the post office without having heard from themselves in some time. And he implored his readers, don't read the times, read the eternities. Okay? And so finding a moment to be still, taking the risk of stopping the traffic in my life long enough to observe my inner condition, and then taking on the courageous approach that this is what I'm responsible for, and this is really the only thing in the world I can do any real thing about. I can change me. And the second that we step over that line and say, that is my determination, we realize that we're ill-equipped. I need to change me, but I can't do it on my own. Well, now I have a warrant for my communal involvement, but my communal involvement isn't to change the community. Okay? It's in search of guidance for myself. How can I reform the aspects of my life that I keep running into trouble because of? Okay? And that ends up being a refreshment. Responsibility ends up being a source of life, a true source of fulfillment. And from that place, as I become a more responsible agent, or I internalize a locus of control, then I can move out into the world as an agent of blessing. I can actually invite people into forms of relationship and community that can fulfill more than just my own selfish interests. And given what the human being is, there is no fulfillment that will be found in isolated attempts at making the self happy. Okay? The great philosophers of old had this term, the hedonic paradox. We know the word hedonism, the doctrine of the pursuit of pleasure at all costs. And the hedonic paradox was, if you want to be miserable, just try to be happy. Okay? Cite that as your aim, and you will guarantee misery. Okay? But if you want to be fulfilled, okay, offer your life in service. Take responsibility for yourself and connect yourself to as many channels of resource in support of your taking of responsibility for yourself as you can, and you will find fulfillment in those spaces.